now I will take over, and yeah, my name is Peter. Please let me introduce myself. Peter Schlichting from company Martin Christ. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I'm still working many years, over 10 years for the company Martin Christ. And yeah, my main business are the pilot and production freeze dryers, and of course I have also experience with the lab scales, lab freeze dryers. So in my presentation I will go over all freeze dryers that are on the market. That means all sizes. And yeah, now I will start. Yeah, what for short agenda. So first I want to show you a little bit more about who is Martin Christ, who is the company, lyophilization, some basics, short introduction of that. Then I will go over, start with the pilot, with the lab freeze dryers, some accessories for the lab freeze dryers, the next steps, pilot freeze dryers, and then we go look for a short view to the production and yeah, how does it look like in pharmaceutical industries. Yeah, who is Martin Christ? So company Martin Christ, we are located in the north of Germany. It's called Osterode. It's a small city nearby Hanover. That's as Hanover has the next airport. So we produce here our freeze dryers with the brand name Martin Christ. And also we have here located the sister company called Sigma. Sigma is the manufacturer of centrifuges. Yeah, we are 75 years young company, so we have a lot of experience for freeze drying. So we produce here in Osterode. We have some sub-suppliers nearby our company. We are still growing from year to year. Now we are more than 250 people, 250 employees, together with our sister company Sigma. So I guess we are 120, 130 for Christ, and the others are for Sigma. Company Martin Christ, we produce all sizes of freeze dryers. That means we have the lab freeze dryers, pilot, and also the production freeze dryers. And we have a little bit combination of centrifuges and freeze dryers. So we call it vacuum concentrator. You know it also under the name Speedvac. Yes. Lyophilization and pharma and biotech. So it's our main market for our freeze dryers. And how does it look like? How some startups will start with these production or the first test of freeze drying. So freeze drying that will be used because a lot of drugs are not very stable in solution. Often they are very thermosensitive, and also avoid degradation, modification of complex molecules, and biological activities is kept. Lyophilization from the liquid phase to the drying phase. So at first you have the liquid, and at the end you want to have a nice cake. That is the white powder in the right picture. You will see it here in the vial, and that is what the most customers want to see after their freeze drying process. Also very important is it to have it closed, the stoppers, here the stoppers on the top, under vacuum sealing. That means you have a really dry atmosphere here inside your vial, inside your vessels. Product can easily be reconstituted, so this means hygroscopic. And freeze drying, of course, is a very complex process. So here's an overview about our freeze dryer sizes, also the combination, the speedvacs, vacuum concentrators, laboratory and freeze dryers, pilot freeze dryers, and also in our product foil is the production freeze dryers here with an automatic loading unloading system also developed from Martin Christ. At the beginning, so it's for our customers, it's very important for process automation and also scale up processes. These are the main points they want to use pilot freeze dryers and start at first with a lab freeze dryer. Typical lyophilization process. So you have only two master values that you can control or you can set in your program. That is the vacuum and also then the shelf temperature. You have different steps during the freeze drying process. At first is freezing, pre-freezing, freeze dryer preparations, and then comes main drying, and at the end, the final drying process. How does it look like during a freeze drying process inside a vial? So you also see here this diagram. So we work here from solid fast. Freeze drying process will be directly go to the dry fast, and that's the three here is called sublimation. Freeze drying in a vial, that works. You have a look here inside a vial. How does it look like with your product? So during the drying process, you have a dry fast and also you have the frozen fast, and between these two fasts you have the sublimation front. And that means you have also different temperatures inside your vial. The frozen parts depends on the controlled vacuum, and the dry fast also then more controlled by the atmosphere, by the convection of the heating shelves from the upper side and also from the bottom, and we have the temperature at the sublimation front. Laboratory scale, so that's some startups, small companies, they want to start with freeze drying, they start with a lab freeze dryer. So different kinds of lab freeze dryer are on the market. So here's a typical laboratory freeze dryer. It's called like a double chamber system. You have a drying chamber on the top and here the ice condenser chamber below. Some freeze dryers have here a kind of valve between it to shut down drying chamber to the ice condenser chamber. Typical in the lab scale is it to pre-freeze your product. So it's mean in a freezer, for example, and then after pre-freezing, you put your product inside the laboratory freeze dryer. Here is a basic models and here acrylic chamber on the top, and also possibility to do over these rubber valves to dry in neck bottles, for example, or directly here in the acrylic chamber on the shelves. In the past, there was some modifications necessary, a lot of cables to heat up the shelves, and now we have the technology, it's called wireless technology. So you have some modules directly on the shelves, and these modules control the temperature of your shelf. That is that you want to have the same set temperature on each shelf inside the system. Another principle is it to use called single chamber system. So you will not have the acrylic chamber on the top, so you will have a kind of lid and then you put your product directly in the ice condenser chamber, and with the nearby of your product to the ice condenser, you can also freeze your product. This is not a controlled freezing, so this is also achieve freezing, fast freezing possible inside your product. And then it's important that you will have a heated shelf inside the system, that you can put the energy to your product doing the main drying process. Very important to know before you start freeze drying process is to know where is your freezing point of your product. And the freezing point, it is very important that you can set the right vacuum value inside the chamber. How you can do that? So we have a solution, it's called lyocontrol. This is a sensor with two measurement functions. They also measure the temperature of the product and measure the resistivity of the product. You will see it here. In the middle, we measure the temperature, and here next to the bigger PT100 sensor is another sensor that you can measure the resistivity. So what's happened during freezing? If you have a liquid product, the resistivity is very low. That we have it here in percent. That means 0%, 100%. And you freeze your product and you see the increase of your resistivity of your product. And if you're here, if it's really frozen, then you have it nearby 100%. Here we will see the temperature of your product and also the shelf temperature. So during freezing, the product temperature follows the set shelf temperature, and also then one time they cross the resistivity curve of the resistivity sensor. And this cross point is near by the freezing point of the product. There are some mathematics behind it to find the real freezing point of the product. But here, if we have the cross point, that is also the first identification where is the freezing point of the product. And all these mathematic things are integrated in the software, and after a freeze drying process, if you used the LYRA-X sensor, during the process documentation, you can calculate with help of the software the freezing point of your product. Here you will see also the cross point of resistivity and the temperature, and the software calculated, okay, freezing point was here for water 0 degree. That's an identification of a water pressure curve. It's the vacuum of 6.1 millibar. For your process, please use the set vacuum value of 4.1 millibar for your process. And that is possible also. It works very fine for crystalline products. Some amorph products, you know, they have not really a set freezing point, but it's a good identification to start at first with the right vacuum value for your process. Further, you can use your lyocontrol sensor, the resistivity sensor, for control your process. Here is a typical freeze drying process with the ice condenser temperature very low. Here is the freezing phase. You freeze your product temperature sensor. The green line is the resistivity line. And you will see here, at this point, there is a break inside the resistivity curve. So that's an identification. There was something wrong with your process, because if you want to have a constant phase of your solid product during the process. And here you can see, oh, that could be something start melting. And also, what could it happen? So during the main drying process, you set a heating ramp of your shelf temperature and you heat up the shelves. And this could be something very too strong, too aggressive, the heating up. And then you will see a break in the resistivity curve. And there's this identification that your products start melting during the process. And that's what you want to not have in your freeze drying process. You want to have a stable process, a stable resistivity, a stable solid phase during your freeze drying process. So what you have to do to reduce the heating up, to reduce the heating rate, to have it a constant level of the resistivity of your product. That is possible in lab freeze drying and also in pilot freeze drying. In pilot freeze dryers, we have also more PAT tools, more process analytic tools to help and also to support the customer for better understanding of their freeze drying process. How does it look like a pilot freeze dryer? So the pilot freeze dryer also looks like the same design as bigger production freeze dryers. That is the reason why a lot of customers use these pilot for the start-up processes, for example, to find out a good freeze drying process before they go to start with a really big production of pharmaceutical medicines. Pilot freeze dryer, you have also the drying chamber, here stainless steel, silicone oil fluided shelves. That means you can also freeze your product. You have a controlled freezing inside these pilot freeze dryers. And also you can heat up during the main drying phase the silicone oil temperature to have the heating rate during the main drying process. Here's the principle: drying chamber, ice condenser chamber, and between these also an intermediate valve. You have a very big opening that you will have a very good vapor transfer from your product to the cold ice condenser. To find out, you do for more identification of your process, so you need a lot of values. So the nearest value that you can measure is product temperature. Product temperature you can also measure with a kind of wired, typical PT100 or other measuring principle, but in most cases that are wired. And if you work with freeze dryers, if you have a product sensor and you want to position this wired product sensor inside your vials, inside your product, that is not really easy to handle that. Now we have the solution, a kind of wireless sensor. This is called WTM+, a wireless temperature measurement. Here we see one sensor inside a vial. So how does it work? So you have antenna inside your freeze drying chamber, and you have here position your product sensor inside the vials. The antenna sends out a frequency in gigahertz to your sensor inside the vial, and this sensor has a quartz inside. And this quartz starts the oscillation and sends the frequency back. And the difference between the frequency from the antenna and the frequency comes back from the quartz depends on the product temperature. The next generation of product temperature measurement is it to have not only the quartz inside for measuring the product temperature, so also is we have implemented a RFID technology chip inside these sensor. And this helps you to know, to understand better what kind of sensor is it. So what is the number of the sensor? That helps you very much doing your process documentation. Where was sensor number 1 position? On which shelf was it? And also in which part of the shelf is in the front or more on the rear side on the shelves. So that you can identify it with this RFID technology. You will see it in your software, where was the position of this sensor, and also you can set where do you want to position this sensor. And then you have the identification of which sensor number was it and where was the position of this sensor. Another nice tool is it to monitoring your process, a visual monitoring. That's you can use a kind of camera system. In the past, a lot of customers, they have their own camera in front of the lyo, and they monitoring this process, and it's a lot of long time, a freeze drying process. A lot of processes are more than 24 hours. And yeah, then they have the video, they have a film, and they have the process data, but they not really know where was some changes from the video. They don't know when was it during the freeze drying process. And now we have implemented a kind of camera system, and during the documentation, you will have the real picture from the camera, and you exactly know when was this picture with data values. Now I want to show you a video. I hope it works very fine. So this LyoCam could be integrated in the freeze dryer in the front door or on the side of the freeze dryer. And after your process, you have the process documentation sheet. You will have the visual completely freeze drying process. You have the process data, and you have the real picture. And you can go with the kind of timeline through your process. You will see the data value at this time, and you will also see the picture. What was it? The situation inside the freeze dryer. You can see the freezing, you can see the drying, and that is possible to do it with this LyoCam. Also, we can position it in the ice condenser chamber that you will see drawing of ice, for example. Then, of course, you can modification the view of this screen, that you have changed the picture, to delete some pictures. Only a camera system. You can go also with the movie directly to your program. So this helps you for a better understanding of your freeze drying process.
Peter?
Yeah?
We have a question. Can wired and wireless data can be combined in the same SCADA?
The data?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I understand you right, but these data.
Maybe I will let them ask by themselves. Is okay from you?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, so I'm going to unmute Yossi again. Yossi?
In the last lyophilization, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, normally the wireless sensors were in a separate had the separate SCADA. Now,
yeah,
there are lyophilizers which which we need to support the wireless and the wired sensors to work together. We want more sensors than are supplied.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
is it possible to add the graphics in the same screen so that it will be shown in the SCADA?
Yeah, no, I understand you. Okay. Yes, you're right. So for the wireless system are two systems on the market. So our system, the wireless sensors are implemented in the software. So you really see the wireless temperature sensors. And also you can use the wired. So in our pilot freeze dryer, you can connect it here with the connection of the wired one, and you can use the wireless. And both sensors you will see integrated in our documentation software and also in the control of the freeze dryer. Both sensors you will see the values.
And the graphic?
And the graphic, yes. And the curves of temperature, product temperature for each type of sensor, wireless or wired, will be shown in the graphic.
So within a laboratory 2-6,
yes, in this kind of, in the kind of pilot freeze dryer, that is possible. So
how many sensors can I install wired, and how many sensors wireless can be installed?
So wired depends on the connections. Yeah, you will see here the connection ports. So that's you can add up to, I think it was 8. So that was the maximum that you can position here. You need more connection ports and the wireless. We have at the moment for the Epsilon pilot freeze dryers 8 and 16. That's the maximum.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, now we go ahead. Another tool for better understanding of the process and also more like to find the end of main drying phase is a pressure increase test. The pressure increase test will work with this kind of valve between drying chamber and ice condenser chamber. You will see it here from the front side. If we open the loading door, it is here located. And now from the rear side, there's a service flange that we have here now opened. And then you will see also here these valve from the rear side of the freeze dryer, and here are the ice condenser coils. How does it work? Pressure increase test. So during the main drying phase, this valve will be closed, and then you measure a pressure increase inside your drying chamber because your freeze drying, your product is not dry, so a lot of vapor comes out of your product and want to go to the ice condenser, but the ray is closed, and then you have more and more vapor inside your drying chamber, and then you will get a pressure increase that you measured with your vacuum sensor. That's an identification that your freeze drying process, your main drying process, is not finished. It has to go further on. And then open the valve again. If you not measure a pressure increase, that's an identification that your main drying process is finished. No more vapor comes out of the product. And then you can switch over from main drying to secondary drying process. This switch over goes automatically. So you have programmed this pressure increase test in your freeze drying program. And was it successful pressure increase test? That means no measurement of vapor, no measurement of pressure increase. Then automatically switch the program from the main drying phase to the secondary drying phase. Another tool also to find the end of main drying phase is the comparative pressure measurement. Here you use the different principle of vacuum measurement sensors, principle of measurement. The standard one is the Pirani. The Pirani works with these hot wire and the vapor flows at this hot wire. So that means this sensor depends on the gas that's flow near to this hot wire. Another one is a capacitive sensor. Could be here the MKS sensor or a FIFA capacitive sensors also have the same principle. You have the diaphragma, and then this is not depends on the gas type that flows here. So how does it look in your process? You will see here the green, the Pirani one, and the blue one, the capacity. And during the main drying phase, you will see different vacuum values because the Pirani depends on the gas that flows nearby the hot wire, and the capacity sensor not depends on the gas. That means during the main drying process, your product vapor comes out, and then you will see different kinds of values. At the end of the main drying process, both vacuum sensors will have near the same vacuum value. That's also identification. Your main drying process is finished. The system can automatically switch over from main drying to secondary drying. Another principle, a tool for modification your process and to give a homogeneous result of your product is it a kind of controlled nucleation. The controlled nucleation means that at the same time all vials will be start the crystallization. From if you freeze your product, some vials starts the crystallization first, the others later. With help of this controlled nucleation, each vial in the chamber will start at the same time the crystallization to ice. Yeah, some principles are on the market. Is also a kind of called ice fog principle. So what you need is our solution is called small nucleator, so a nucleation chamber. Can be also here installed in the Martin Christ freeze dryers. How does it look like? So it could be a pilot freeze dryer also with the ice condenser chamber behind the drying chamber, or here a bigger freeze dryer, you will have the ice condenser chamber below. And here separated is the nucleation chamber. The principle is that you have at the beginning in both chamber atmosphere pressure. Then you close, here's a kind of valve, you close the valve. You will have here atmosphere pressure. Here you will start under freezing of your product and a small vacuum value nearby atmosphere, and at first it starts the evaporation of your product. Some vapors go to the ice condenser, and then you will see small ice crystals at the ice condenser coils. After a stabilization phase, you open the valve and you have a flow from the atmosphere chamber. You will have a vapor flow through the ice condenser, and these ice crystals go together with the flow back in the drying chamber and starts these ice crystals back here to the product and starts the crystallization in each vial at the same time. Here is it in example a pilot freeze dryer, and here it looks like a lab freeze dryer. This is the nucleation chamber. It could look like this one. And also here is the valve and the connection to the ice condenser chamber. Here it looks like an example epsilon 2-10D, the small connection tubes, nucleation chamber. That is, you need not more a kind of overpressure chamber or something like that. You not need a additional gas, nitrogen or something like that. So we call it like a self-nucleation of the product. Some facts again, also that we can implement it in bigger production freeze dryer. So this nucleation chamber also possible to add it with the CIP or SIP process. A video, how does it look like if we start this controlled nucleation and the vapor flow comes back to the unit? What's happened inside the vial? So it's still liquid, and now you will see, open the valve and the vapor flow comes, and here start crystallization. You will see also the crystallization. This works in pilot freeze dryer and also in production freeze dryers. Here we see a kind of production freeze dryer, a smaller one. If you look here to these vials, for example, then you will also see when the vapor flow comes, then starts the crystallization. Again, you look here, vapor and crystallization. That is a tool to have the same ice construction in each vial in the batch. Another tool is MTM. It's also on the market. So why we want to use this manometric temperature measurement? The temperature of the product is one of the most critical parameters. So for the freeze drying process, of course. Influence the form of the ice structure. You have seen then here with also with the controlled nucleation, speed of the process, and also some melting effects are the temperature of your product. Most of them know the measurement tools only allow the measurement of the product temperature in selected vials. So that's the typical production temperature sensors, wireless or the wired one. But this gives you only an identification of one vial, not for the complete batch. MTMs allows to get a complete understanding as an average temperature is determined, but it does not allow to identify any potential hotspots. The classical MTM is not often used during commercial production. So in a big production freeze dryer, they not use it. But will give it a better understanding for your process optimization, then it's good to know, and you can use it in a kind of pilot freeze dryer. This is not really new. So MTM was developed 20 years ago. That was a very nice guy, Mr. Pikal. So they have a good idea, and they theoretically knows about more than 70 years about that. Summarize that, and then For MTM measurements, the product chamber is separated from the ice condenser chamber. So the principle is a little bit like a pressure increase test. But the closing time is very short. And with these MTM, you will measure with these, you have to add a lot of parameters, some physical modules was developed by Mr. Pikal, and if you add all these data phase without your product and what kind of product is it, and some mathematics procedure behind that, that will to help you to find the temperature at the sublimation front. Yeah, usually the statistic MTM measurement, the product chamber is separated from the ice condenser for a fixed time. Thus, especially at the beginning of the main drying process, there's the risk of indemnifiable process and thus temperature increase. With the dynamic MTM measurement, so that's developed by Martin Christ, the calculation of the pressure and the temperature at the sublimation front already takes place when the product chamber is separated. Since these interactive calculations converge after a very short time, especially at the beginning of the main drying process, separation of the product chamber from the ice condenser chamber can be reduced considerably to a few seconds, for example, 5 up to 10. At the same time, by optimization these calculations, the usually fast closing is not more necessary. So in the past, you have a very fast close and open, but with our new developed process, that is not more necessary. So we use our standard intermediate valve inside a pilot freeze dryer. And here are the facts that we want to get it with our new developed MTM calculation software. It's very easy to integrate it in our current freeze dryer. So that is more like a software modification, but of course you need a higher measuring data systems, and also that we use more vacuum sensors, depend also of the vacuum range that you want to measure. How does it look like, these pilot freeze dryers? So we have standard sizes, that looks like this one, standalone configurations. Further, these are very easy to modify, for example, built-in wall freeze dryers with the control separately, can also be implemented in a clean room wall, for example, or connection to glove boxes or isolator is also possible. So with these kind of pilot freeze dryers, you are very flexible to installation it in your facility.
Peter?
Yeah?
Are we about to summarize?
Summarize?
Yeah, because our next lecturer are already here.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
then we go look to the future. Production freeze dryer, principal design as a pilot freeze dryer. What is new is automatic loading unloading system. And here's a completely part of a production line. So that means while washing, filling, and here at the end are the freeze dryers for production. Summarize. So we see a very good market and also for the future for lyophilization process. We also see that more and more production sites like a barrier system called RAPS or isolator will become on the market. And also we look more for a very price sensitive product. That means we will go a little bit more to smaller batches, but to very high level cost of these products. Yes, so all these videos and you have seen here in my presentation, you also find on our homepage. And if you want to contact me, please send me a mail, or also Dr. Golik, a very good partner in freeze drying process. That's Emanuel Stancho. It's very good guy that he knows a lot of that. And please contact him or me directly.
Emanuel is perfect guy for you. He knows and he can support you as much as you need and care. True, Peter? Are we talking about Emanuel here? Okay, so I'm gonna say thank you.
Thank you very much, and I hope we have a good new understanding what is new on the market for process analytic tools to help you, and also kind of a pilot freeze dryer. So we will see it also in our production. This is a very growing market, these kind of pilot freeze dryers.
And you have also many thanks in the chat, sending it to you. Very interesting, people. Thank you for the attendee that writing in our chat. Thank you very much. Thank you, Peter, for having you here. It was a pleasure to host you.